I don't want to eat broccoli. I hate broccoli. No more broccoli, please, please, please. No, don't hi honey me. Don't even do that. No, it's not gonna work on me. It's not gonna work. All right, my friends, I take it you're ready for another horror film review. Well, I've got a good one for you. This is a movie from 1984, and it's called The Initiation. It was directed by Larry Stewart. And I'll tell you what, right now, this is a movie that I have quite a long history with. I remember watching this when I was 4 years old. My grandma had taped it off a cable, and I watched it quite a few times, and I remember back then, as a very young kid, being kind of taken aback by the level of violence. There are some bloody murders in this one that kind of stick out, and when you're a child, of course, and you watch a bloody murder scene in a film, it's much more gratuitous because your mind just blows things up so much more. It just becomes so much more exponentially grand and gruesome because, you know, when you're a kid, you exaggerate things. You know, you'll walk into a building as a child and you think it's this huge, enormous structure, and then you go back into that same building 10 years later, and you're like, man, I thought this place was so much bigger. Well, that's kind of the way this movie is to me. It's not quite as bloody as I thought it was when I was 4 years old, but it is pretty gruesome. It does deliver the bloody shocks in a few scenes, that's for sure. Another thing that kind of made an impression on me was the fact that one of the murder weapons that's used frequently in this movie is this little garden fork, okay? I had to look up what this fucking thing was called because I didn't know what, you know, I don't go outside and garden. I don't plant flowers and shit. But yeah, it's called a garden hand fork. And it's kind of interesting how that is used as a murder weapon a few times in this flick. I think that adds an air of originality about it. You know, anytime a slasher movie would introduce a new sharp implement to do its dirty work, I always thought that was a nice touch when films would do that. Because, you know, in a slasher movie, you can only use a butcher knife so many fucking times. You gotta change it up now and then. But another thing I want to get onto, let's talk about a few of the releases of this movie, shall we? Now, first, I want to show you this. Thorn EMI was responsible for the VHS release of this movie, and as you can see right here, it's in one of those little hard clams, and I love these things. I'm very nostalgic about these HBO Video and Thorn EMI releases. I love all of them. Madman, Return of the Living Dead, this one, and then you got Girls Night Out, and you know, there's others. Extra. I'm sure I'm forgetting Evil Dead. That's a very classic example right there. And then, of course, The Terminator. I could go on and on. I love these Thorn EMI and HBO Video hard clams. They're really cool. They're fun to collect, I think. And so, yeah, there's the cover. I'm sure you've all seen it by now. Sorority ceremony becomes a real hell night for co-ed. The night new blood is pledged. So there you go. So if you were walking along the aisles in a video store and saw this, this looks like a tempting one to pick up. Now, like I said, I didn't rent this movie back in the day. I didn't fucking have to because we had it on tape when it ran on HBO or Cinemax or whatever the fuck it was. But let's move on quite a few years, and in the early 2000s, first of all, Anchor Bay released it twice. They put it out on its own, and then not long after, they released it as a double. They paired it up in a double bill in one of their drive-in DVD releases, and they put it on with one of my favorite films of all time, Mountaintop Motel Massacre. So you got both of them paired up there. One's on one side of the disc, and then you flip it over when you want to watch the other movie. Now, obviously, I like Mountaintop Motel a hell of a lot better than this movie, but Initiation, you know, that's a nice double bill if you ask me. So there you go, Anchor Bay did that. Then we're just swimming in releases of the Initiation here, because then later on down the road, Image Entertainment released it as a part of their Midnight Madness series, and you can see right there. If that's not enough for you, Arrow Video put out a Blu-ray release not long ago, so definitely pick that one up if you're a fan of the movie. But that's enough talking about the various releases and about my history watching this movie. Let's get right into the plot. Let's not waste any more goddamn time. We got too much to get to. The whole story centers around a fresh-faced college girl named Kelly. She's a smart young lady who desires only the finer things in life. Fast cars, good food, and hot sex. But anyway, enough of that nonsense. Kelly has a lot of serious shit going on. Not only is she trying to become a full-fledged member of a very prestigious sorority, but she's also having recurring dreams of some traumatic, flame-broiled incident that took place in her past. Yes, indeed, it's another horror movie with hazy, mysterious dream sequences, and it's up to you to piece this shit together. Meanwhile, over at Fireside Sanitarium, some old ugly asshole is driving a garden fork into the ground over and over again. Why he's doing this, no one fucking knows. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. But it gets all the crazy people inside worked up and hot and heavy. And later that evening, a pretty red-headed nurse is brutally slaughtered inside her parked car. An unseen assailant stabs her in the goddamn torso repeatedly with a fucking garden fork. Now, remember when I said I watched this movie when I was like 4 years old? Well, when you're 4, things stick in your mind. And that's one of the things that really stuck in my mind about this damn movie was that damn fork, okay? Around the same time that I saw this movie, I remember being in a store, okay? It was like a department store or something, and they had a bin of VHS tapes. One of the tapes they had in the fucking bin was called The Meat Eater. Now, if you've ever seen the VHS release of that movie, on the cover, on this particular release, I'm not sure how many different releases of The Meat Eater there are, but the one I saw in that bin, it had a fork on it, okay? And on the fork, there was like blood dripping down the fork. Now, to me, it kind of looked like ketchup. And I remember the tagline for this movie said something like a very tasty horror film or something like that. I haven't looked at the cover in a while. But anyway, so those two kind of merged together in my mind. Watching the Initiation around this time where the killer's using this garden fork thing, okay, and you got blood going everywhere, dripping off the damn thing, and then around the same time in a fucking store, I see this Meat Eater cover with the fork with ketchup coming down. Now, the two in my mind created some kind of distorted thing where when I be eating hot dogs, because when you're a kid, you don't eat hot dogs the way you're supposed to. You know, when you're grown up, you're supposed to eat your hot dog on a bun with some mustard, okay? Or with relish and with chili and with onions and all that good stuff. But when you're a stupid kid, you take your hot dog, right, and you chop it up into pieces, and you put ketchup on it, and you dip the damn thing in ketchup. And that's how I ate it when I was a kid. So when I'd be sitting there, eating my hot dog with ketchup and dipping it into ketchup and eating it, I would always think about the Initiation and about that Meat Eater cover, and I'd sit and I'd look at the fork and I'd make the ketchup drip down the fork, okay? And I'd say the fork on the knife. Does that make any sense? That's what I'd say. It's still in my head today. Like if I was ever eating something with the fork and I had ketchup on it, I'd go, the fork on the knife. every damn time I chop up those damn hot dogs and eat them with that damn ketchup, I think about this movie. I think about ketchup dripping down. And then that reminds me also, whenever my mom, she would always make me, she'd make me English muffins, toasted English muffins, and then she'd put black raspberry jelly on there, you know what I'm saying? And whenever I'd see that jelly on the damn toast or on the English muffin, I'd say to her, I'd say, is this blood? I'd ask her that. I'd say, hey, is this blood on here? And she'd say, no, you dumbass, it's jelly. Now eat your fucking food, you little prick. I love hot dogs. But getting back to the story, Kelly starts falling in love with a good-looking college professor named Peter. This guy wants to analyze her dreams and help unlock the mystery that haunts her fractured mind. But finding the answer won't be easy, because remember what I said earlier, it's Hell Week on campus, and you know that Kelly and the other pledges are going to have to carry out some kind of stupid hazing ritual. That's just the way these things work. The whole idea that the sorority leader has in mind is pretty unique. Kelly's dad is super rich, and he has this huge department store mall thing called the Fairchild Building. Now this thing is just enormous. I've never seen a fucking mall like this in my entire life. It's like 7 or 8 stories high, and it's very unique looking. I mean, just look at the elevators in this place. Is this a mall or a fucking space station? But anyway, the leader of the sorority sends Kelly and a couple other pledges inside the mall after hours. They're supposed to steal the security guard's uniform or some stupid shit like that. Once the girls are inside the mall, some other college dumbasses sneak inside as well. And that, my friends, is when the real slasher fun can begin. Because these trespassing bastards start getting picked off in a variety of violent ways. Will Kelly and Peter find a way to stop the unyielding madness? Well, you better watch and find out, you sick weirdos. Okay, now that we have the plot out of the way, let's move on to some other aspects. Let's talk about the kills in this movie. One guy gets a garden fork stuck right in his neck, and then after he falls to the ground, the killer finishes him off with a big-ass machete. A security guard gets forked in the chest. Blink and you'll miss it. And a girl gets an arrow through the heart. But the showstopper for me is a vicious stabbing where the spurting blood, knife-plunging sound effects, and horrific screams all coalesce to create a macabre orchestra of pure hell. The editing during this kill scene is very well done, and I mean, this is the part that really stood out and shocked me as a kid. I mean, it's pretty hyper-violent for a slasher movie made around this time. I mean, because we're not talking about a movie like Nightmare or Maniac, where those are deliberately subversive, you know, late-night kind of movies. The Initiation is more your mainstream kind of slasher, so I thought this scene was pretty hard-hitting, and like I said, this was the part that always stuck out in my mind when I'd be eating like an English muffin with some jelly on it, because the black raspberry jam kind of had that dark look of the blood in this scene. I love English muffins! And I mean, just look at the way that outstretched hand is trying desperately to grasp onto that microphone. Just a classic slasher scene. Alright, let's move right along now and talk about the music score. Fucking psycho. Anyway. Yeah, I gotta do this. I don't know what you're doing over there. Alright, moving right along, let's talk about the music score from Gabriel Black and Lance Ong. Now, the score to this movie is electronic based, it's all keyboard and synthesizer stuff, and you know me, I prefer that over an orchestra or string instrument. I just like the eerie, lifeless quality that a synth or keyboard-based score can bring. It just has this disquieting effect when it's done right. I feel like it's much more eerie. And it's because it's that electronic nature of it. Like I said, there's this, it kind of sucks a lot of the humanity out, and it's just more ghostly to me. A string score, there's just a little bit more warmth, in my opinion. So when done correctly, there is nothing better than a synthesizer score in a slasher or a horror movie. But this movie gets it all wrong, and I'm going to explain why. First of all, how the hell did it take two guys to do this score? Because there is barely any effort applied at all. All this score mostly is just one-note stuff where a guy takes his hand, puts it on a fucking key, and just puts creepy effects and just kind of lets it drone on, okay? Just puts it on a scary sounding key and just ambient stuff. There's no effort applied to the score. There's nothing memorable about it. You don't walk away from watching this movie and go, God damn, the music to the initiation, it was really good. Did you hear that theme at the beginning? Or at the end? Or in that one scene, you remember that theme the composer played that was really creepy sounding? No. You don't walk away from this movie doing that at all. And that's my point. Two guys. They used two composers. What were these guys doing? That's what I want to know. These guys got paid. I could make a score like this in my sleep. I would feel ashamed. Say I was a composer on a movie and I was getting paid money to score a horror movie and I turned this shit in, I'd be ashamed of myself. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. So the bottom line is that I expect a lot better. You know, the sounds, they got the sounds right. And there's nothing wrong with one-note droning stuff and finding creepy keys and just trying to milk that. But that shouldn't make up 90% of your score. That shouldn't make up a whole huge chunk of it. And that's all this score is. So I expect a lot better in a slasher movie. I'm sorry. I'm sure these guys could have done better than this. And then to top it off, to add insult to injury, like they're kicking you while they're down, they're pouring salt on your wounds. The end credits, there's this soap opera type song playing, okay? The music sounds like it's coming from a soap opera, and it paints images in my mind, right? When I hear something like this. To me, it sounds like a man and his wife, a man and his newly wedded wife, right? And they're having doggy-style sex on their honeymoon. That's what it makes me think of. Like he's just riding that ass right there on the bed, right on the honeymoon. And that's what this music makes me think of, all right? So, I mean, that's not a bad thing, but I don't want to hear that at the end of a horror movie. I mean, it's out of place. Maybe if the movie had a love scene, that'd work better, but don't put it at the end over the end credits. But anyway, yeah, the music score, whoa. I'd give this a D-, because there are some creepy notes played. So that keeps it from being an F. But other than that, there is nothing to recommend about the music in this fucking movie. Alright, now let's move along to my final thoughts. Let's go over the atmosphere and just my general takeaway from this movie. A big thing I want to say right now about this movie. It is way too long. They could have trimmed a good 15 minutes off of this movie easily. There are many pandering scenes that just drag on. I mean, I know they're trying to establish a relationship between the Kelly character and between Peter, and that's cool and everything, but there's a little bit too much of it. So they could have tightened the pace a little bit, lopped some shit out of here because it drags in parts. I mean, we don't even get inside that department store mall thing until a good 47, 48 minutes into the movie before we even get to that stuff, and that's the fun stuff. It's a unique atmosphere for a slasher, and it would have worked better if they would have milked it more and more of the movie would have taken place in there. Because think about it. A mall has all of these empty, dark rooms. They're in this place after hours, and I just don't think they seize on the opportunity in this movie. There is a really cool scene in here where this guy is looking off the balcony and he's seeing the lights on each floor go off one after another. I thought that was really cool. More stuff like that would have been nice because, I mean, you had the perfect opportunity here using this very unique location, and I just feel like it's a missed opportunity. It was not utilized properly, and that's really sad because it's always cool when a slasher movie deviates from your typical like high school setting or camp setting or wooded setting. It's neat when they do something like this, when they try to put it in a place that's a little unorthodox, like a hospital or a mall or anything like that. It's cool to have different backdrops for the madness that unfolds in these type of flicks. but The Initiation, it just doesn't do it for me. It really missed the mark waiting too long in the film to utilize that location. Getting back to just the mall itself, it's awesome. I mean, it's really cool. Like I said, I've never seen a place like that. I've never been in a mall like that. And to tell you the truth, I'm afraid of heights, and I also don't like closed spaces, so I wouldn't be getting in that space station dildo-looking fucking elevator and going up to the top floor. No. I don't even like to ride up a real high set of escalators. I start to get woozy if I look back. I mean, I've been in malls before where you're going up escalators and they're going up really high and you turn back and man, it's sickening. It really just puts butterflies in your goddamn stomach. I gotta say, the acting's obviously very good. I mean, you got that Daphne chick from Melrose Place. This is a film from her early years, and she was also in The Dorm That Dripped Blood, so she kind of had a little slasher pedigree going at the time. You also have Clu Gulager in here, and you know, everybody loves him. And us horror fans, we always remember The Return of the Living Dead, and you know, he was in Nightmare on Elm Street 2. Hell, he was even in The Willies. I don't know if you've ever seen that one, but man, is that movie funny. I love that part where that kid, he has like the flies, and he's got like a fly church where he has all these dead flies, and there's a dead fly on a cross and shit. That's a great story. So the acting is solid. I really liked that. There's some good nude scenes in this one too that you don't want to miss. And like I said, it's got a high body count, and it's got plenty of blood thrown around for a slasher movie that's kind of more of a mainstream one. So overall, what would I grade? What would I give? Let's just use the 4-star system. What would I give The Initiation? I would probably give it 2 out of 4 stars. To me, this movie's just average. It's not bad, but it's not great either. It's just an okay movie. It has some good things going for it. It has a unique murder weapon that's used sometimes, that hand fork thing. But the things that just keep it at 2 stars are the bad score. Movie doesn't have a good score. It's not memorable at all. And also, it's too fucking long. They take too long to get to the setting that has the best atmosphere. There's way too much setup. And we don't need that much setup. You don't need that much setup in a slasher movie, I'm sorry. This isn't a Stanley Kubrick film. I expect, you know, plenty of establishment and all kinds of great stuff to read into and immerse yourself in if I'm watching like the fucking Shining or something like that. I'm watching The Initiation here. It's a slasher movie. We don't need all this pandering and slow shit. So is The Initiation an all-time classic? I wouldn't go that far. But is it worth a watch for a hardcore slasher fan? You're damn right it is. So make sure to pop yourself some popcorn, open up a nice can of Pepsi, and enjoy this flick. Any way you can watch it, whether it be on VHS, DVD, or Blu-ray. Get yourself a copy of The Initiation and check it out. And tell me what you think in the comments section below, because I'm sure most of you have already seen this movie. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.